Mark chapter 11, verses 12 through 25. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard it. And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow them to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." And the chief priests and the scribes heard it, and were seeking a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. As they passed by in the morning, they saw a fig tree withered away to its roots. And Peter remembered and said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed has withered." And Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses." So I'm Joe Stroup, and I'm the Next Gen pastor at Greystone Presbyterian Church in Indiana, Pennsylvania. And we've been in Pennsylvania for about 3 years now, and we moved here from the Bay Area of California near San Francisco. And when we made that move, we actually drove across the country, and we had a trailer. And in that trailer, one of the things we brought with us was a cherry tree that we had recently got. It was in a pot, and so it was in our U-Haul trailer in the back of our car, and we carried it across the entire country. And when we got here, the first year, we arrived in January, and it was actually snowing when I pulled into Indiana. And I set the tree down, and it made it through. That year, we were still getting settled into our new house. We didn't put it out where it could get water, and it didn't produce any cherries at all. It was the first season we were hoping to see some fruit to come off this tree. And the second year, we were looking forward to it possibly producing fruit. And when it came to that time, we saw flowers. It was out. It got plenty of water. We were really excited. And little cherries started to grow. And our anticipation grew greater as we saw this happening. And just as the fruit was starting to develop, birds came and ate all the fruit off of the tree. And I know this sounds like a story Jesus tells. This is totally what happened. So last year, when we finally got down to the time, we were being really cautious. We're paying a lot of attention to the fruit as it was coming. And we finally got to enjoy those cherries from that cherry tree. And when you're looking forward to something, when you're looking forward to the fruit, the production of something, to see how a season comes to a culmination, and then it doesn't happen, it's so disappointing, isn't it? As Jesus comes to this tree, as he's waiting to see if it's going to produce fruit, if it's going to produce its intended purpose, and then it doesn't. This story might seem a little strange because it's like, it even says in the story, it wasn't the time for figs. So why is Jesus so ticked off? What's his deal? And it's an interesting little thing because in this story, Jesus has this encounter with a fig tree. And immediately after, he goes into the temple. He goes to the place where the worship of God has been centered for Israel's history ever since the temple was made. And it had been a very complicated history. There have been a lot of times of things not working out the way they'd intended or things not going how they thought they should. But he goes into the temple and he drives out people who are buying and selling. He has this encounter, and on the other side of it, he comes back to the fig tree and he sees that it's withered. What the author is doing here is he's kind of painting a picture. He's drawing a connection. He's helping us to understand that the tree itself is a picture of what's going on in the temple, of what happened in that whole experience, of how his disappointment that the tree was not producing fruit, that's the same disappointment at God's heart for what the worship of the Lord had turned into in the temple, in this place that's precious to him, something that he wanted the people to take part in. Sometimes when something, a season, a time, it doesn't live up to the expectations that we have, it doesn't live up to the potential that it has, that makes the disappointment more painful. And I think all of us can identify with that feeling right now, of a season not working out the way that we'd intended, of our hopes and our ideals and what we had thought this was going to be, not shaping up the way that we anticipated. But Jesus' encouragement at the very end, he's criticized this tree. He's cursed it so that no one could do this. And he goes and he starts talking to his disciples about the importance of prayer, where worship in their temple has proven to fail them, has failed even the very heart of God. He draws them back and points out how important it is to come to God, to simply trust him and to pray, knowing that his desire is for good gifts for his children. What God wants from us, is it sacrifices burned in a beautiful place? Is it songs offered as we gather together? Or does God simply want us to trust him, to follow him, and to serve him, to turn to him in prayer and to acknowledge that he is the one who is good? What does it look like for us in a season that may seem unfruitful to produce fruit in our lives that is pleasing to God? What does it mean to trust so radically that in our prayer we could ask for incredible things and see God move? I'm not saying you should go tell mountains to go jump into the sea, or that God is some kind of cosmic vending machine who, if you say the right words, he's going to give you everything you want. But what does it look like to radically trust God and to turn to him in faithful, simple surrender and belief, and to know that he is strong and good and wants to bless his people? That's my prayer, that we could lean into that question of what does it mean to trust him that way, especially in a season that may feel unfruitful. What would it look like for God to produce fruit we didn't expect? That's my prayer for us. I'll see you next week.